recording. Yeah, and I realized like doing flipbooks and then doing some test renders with Redshift, there's a bit of glitches. Updating this index intrinsic for all of these instances at the same time. So instead of doing pack disk sequence, this kind of stuff, the goal, it's not a super defined goal, but it's basically to have like a pretty interactive, robust setup that can kind of like animate growing little leaves, could be fungi, algae, like I was calling it algae. It could be some kind of something like that. Like I was looking at some reference earlier. I don't really have a good thing in mind or on the top of my head. Could be like little leafy stuff, green stuff. Jabram shared a PBS Nova documentary earlier that had some good references. But yeah, it could be these little like spores, this kind of green stuff. It could be frost, like little crystals or something like that. But yeah, just doing this kind of spreading stuff with detailed geometry, but then a lot of it, and being able to art direct it and like update it quickly. So yeah, I decided for right now I'm gonna abandon the pack disk sequence, updating the index intrinsic. Just seems a little too cumbersome to get it working with Redshift, and it's a bit unstable or whatever for right now. So what my plan to do instead of that, let me hide this other stuff. Go back up here and maybe just reduce that division size a little bit. So with this, we are saving the curve view and animating the points over time along the curve view. So this is happening, the point position is just getting like stretched or elongated along the template or skeleton primitives. So over time, from frame 1 to 24, the points are stretched or scaled along their skeleton or themselves, essentially. So yeah, it could be cool for hair growth on like textured fabric, like if you're even ripping or something like that, like it could be like little stray fuzzy bits or something like that. But what I was kind of realizing or thinking was maybe instead of baking all of this animation into a geometry sequence, possibly just trying to animate it at the shader level with attributes inside of the shader. So if we instead take a look, maybe a polywire, trying to think where the best place is to put this. Maybe at the bottom here, we'll just bypass that animation for right now. And instead of this wire radius being fixed, I can do $width. So that's getting initialized or set right here. All right. So we have a curve view that's being set on the point level. And then this polywire does make vertex UV coordinates. We'll just do a quick shade to visualize them. The big issue with these is that they repeat for every line segment. boom, boom, boom. So you can kind of see that keeps repeating over and over again. I think if you switch, I don't know if they have a colored, sometimes they have a UV thing. Let me just go into my own stash. Like this one here that's just a red and green texture. You kind of see each segment here with the green color. It keeps restarting or going like for every line segment. So if I promote the curve view attribute to vertex level, just do that. Then I can replace this. This would be the green channel or the Y channel of the vertex UV coordinate. Then you can see it's, just turn off all the lighting and everything like that. Should be, just make sure I'm on the right level. All right. So now we have something that's 0 at the bottom and 1 at all of the tips and everything like that. If we do, just compare the time with it, you kind of see the animation. Curve UV on the cross section, sweep it. Yeah, I think, let me see if it works. What I'm trying to do here. So this will just be update UV. I'm just gonna clean up some more of these attributes. So we'll get rid of costs. We don't need the width anymore. We don't need the orig PT. Yeah, we could get into the, so saying varying the stem thickness would add some nice touches. Yeah, we could get into definitely making things look better. Right now I'm just trying to sort out like technically what the best way is to get this animation and stuff set up. And then on the vertex level, we'll just get rid of curve view. So this is just clean attributes. So let's visualize it now with the color. Can do it in a vertex wrangle because that's where the UVs are on the vertex level. So we'll take the color, set it to the UVs. And then instead of all of them, you can just look at the Y channel. And then I think if I just maybe let's try less than or greater than the time. So instead of that, we could do maybe the other way, a less than. So it's kind of like the growing. Maybe instead of time, just multiply time by like 0.25, so it'll be 25% of the speed. We could go even slower, just added a 0 before it. Or even slower than that. I don't know how. Seems like this still keeps going too fast. But do I need to maybe like a order of operations? Such a small number, right? Yeah, so I'm planning to do the growth in the shader. So with the pack disk, pack disk primitives or pack disk instancing with Redshift, you can provide it with point attributes and have that drive things in your shader. So I was going to try to set it up that way, and should be more easy to render everything without like the pack disk sequences causing issues or stuff like that. Vegan nuts. How's it going? Yeah, I mean, with the flickering, I think that's more of just like a technical issue with the pack disk sequence. I don't think it's necessarily. Yeah, I don't think it actually has to do with. I think it's just misrepresenting like the actual math or attributes that's happening. This stuff here is happening for a different reason. This is like a different flickering or a different issue. I think if you wanted to, you could redo this. Recalculate the curve view if you maybe do distance along geometry. Let's see. I think the start point could still be 0. Instead of surface, you probably want it to be edge. Then if I maybe try doing this again, just set that to points. Let's see if it works. I don't know if sometimes this visualizer, I'm a little suspicious of it. Let's just try doing color. Ramp from attribute. Dist. So it looks like it's just a really low number. Maybe this is like, maybe it's not liking it because it's connected geometry. I'm just gonna move forward with this how it is right now. I think one thing we could do, just to add some quick fanciness or the variable stem thickness that Noah was talking about. After you create the width, we'll just do a quick attribute wrangle. We could do width randomized by the primitive number. Vertex displacement. You could do that. I have a little bit of a hesitation doing, feel like instancing a ton of packed primitives and then doing displacements on them like at render time with Redshift is a bit, it doesn't like to do it really. I think maybe with like Unreal or a real-time engine, that would be the way to go, but unfortunately, I think with Redshift, doing a bunch of like instances and then displacing on top of them seems to like flood the memory a little bit. All right, so we can do it randomized by a random primitive number. Could do multiply it by the curve view. It looks like this curve view starts at 0 at the root and then ends at 1 at the tips. You just turn off the visualization. So if we want to kind of invert that, you can just do 1 minus. So now the root is a lot thicker and the tips get thinner. Maybe overall. Yeah, so I'm planning, like, I'm thinking, let me go a little thicker for right now. Yeah, so I'm planning with this camera angle and like some of the earlier visualizations. I don't know how close the camera is going to get to everything, but my plan is to have these things pretty small and overlapping quite a bit so that you're not noticing it, but it's possible you might see kind of inside of the tubes. Is that what you're talking about with the seeing inside of the cross section? I would think of the ray would just hit the back, like the inside of it, unless very certain circumstances where you're like looking, the camera's looking right down inside of things. Like right along it's perfectly aligned with a branch or something like that. Could switch this over. Let me just try this. Pack this. Switch it over. So unless there's super specific situations, like I'm kind of thinking right now that there's just going to be enough stuff going on visually that you won't notice too much if there's like some transparency or something like that. Yeah, but DSG. Still don't know what I've been doing here all these months. Don't know what you're doing too. I think it's beautiful. Thank you for letting me know. I don't think anyone knows what they're doing here, right? Yeah, it's all about, we are all a little dumb. You're the master, Romulus? Mrs. Vavel, how's it going? All right. So we could maybe even go a little thicker with these branches. Kind of thinking now that I'm visualizing like the scale and everything like that. Thick. So I think another thing, I'll just call this modulate width. So instead of this being a linear decrease over the length from root to tip, if you just do a power function, and then do like a number less than 1, you'll kind of get thicker stalks along the curves. Let me just go this, get rid of the color. Yeah, so this, you get more of like a broccoli. Some thick beef and brock. Yeah, so this is kind of like a contrast on the thickness. The closer you get to 0 is just like, I don't know if you, all the way at 0 might mess it up. I guess 0 just kind of disables it. And then the higher you go above 1, you can see how thin they're getting. It's kind of going to a contrast or bias or whatever the other way. It's kind of like a gamma. If you do image color correction, is kind of like a way to think about it. If this is like a scalar value of black and white, the power is kind of acting like a gamma would with color correction. We get it thicker that way. With this randomization, if you just add a small number to it, maybe just 0.2, then you can be certain none of them will ever get multiplied by 0. So that prevents any from being completely lost or disappearing. You just multiply or add a little small number. So basically, instead of the random number being between 0 and 1, now it's between 0.2 and 1.2. Let's see, you could try it even thicker, see what happens. It's a gem. Yeah, it's also just a bit of a caution or warning. I don't know, sometimes I do it. Also, sometimes with like renderers or attributes or stuff, like I remember hitting I think side effects has fixed the problem, but I remember a long time ago, like if you set the p scale to exactly 0, it would like ignore the p scale and render it at the default like 0.05 size or whatever. Sometimes renderers in general just like wig out if you have stuff that's scaled to 0. It's like it will glitch it or something like that. Duck Fast, how's it going? All right. So yeah, we could try these plants, this little fungi stuff like this. We wanted to, I guess we could just go in back to the camera view. Let's take a look at this rock. Kind of realized that doing the tessellation helped render it. So it's already kind of down-resed a little bit, but then otherwise, like I was running into some shadow biasing issues and stuff like that. I could try to show you what was happening. Let's just see what we get here with this. All right, I think I messed up some other stuff. So on my plant growth, I still had this set to render it like I was rendering the curves as strips. That might have been messing stuff up. Let me see if this, all right, so it's fixing it. All right, and then we don't have any shaders set up right now. We'll just do a material network, material builder. This will be the plants. And we'll just make another one for the rock. I think we can put it on. And let's try it again. Add some green. Didn't like it. All right, maybe just try adding like a light. Just gonna swing around and get like a rim action going. Do the RS light. Let me make sure we have just gonna start this again. The new redshift ROP, just in case the other one got tainted, cursed. Camera 1. Let's see if it works. All right. You have to try the new, the new emotes. All right. So we got our greens, our broccolis. Could turn the rock geometry on. So I think this right now is just a problem with the default shader being like reflecting itself. It's like a mirror reflection. But I think I could kind of show you. Let's try turning the tessellation off. So this is the issue that I was running into. Basically, it's kind of like a shadow biasing issue or like interpolation issue. So that was the reason I ended up deciding to turn this on. You would probably be a little bit low res with those settings. Like I don't think it's super, it's not like displacement where you need them to be super refined. Musunar20, how's it going? Alright, so we could get our rock shader going. Slam these textures in. Where is this? Alright, textures. So we want the normal, LOD0. I think the normal map, we actually just want to use the, I always get tricked with this redshift node because it, like displacement and everything else will take an input, but this one you actually put the texture map into it itself. I think we can do that. We'll just do this, get the color. Let's see, we probably also want to get maybe the reflection. It's like a 2-in-1 reflection, color, and strength. And then probably just like the roughness. Gloss. If it's a gloss, I usually just, I guess you could do color invert. That will just switch it around. So I think it's doing like the same thing I was doing earlier, 1 minus the color, like 1 minus the value. This is just roughness and glossiness are the same idea or the same concept, but they're just flipped around or whatever. Let's see what we get. So yeah, it's looking a little bit better. I don't know if my camera's just too close. These 4K textures are still breaking a little bit. The normal map is helping. Could add the bounce light. I don't know if I can make the textures repeat. This is like a 3D scan, so it actually has, like if we look at the UV, I think in here, let me just press like the 5 button, go into this. So like the UVs and the maps and stuff like that are laid out. A tiling, yeah. So doing maybe, I think that this stuff is like, yeah, doing a RS noise on top could be nice. I guess if I'm already doing this, could add displacement. See what happens. Usually the scale is just way too big for like the scene scale. All right. I'm actually just gonna disable this other stuff and just visualize the noise value. Can't see the normal cusping. Yeah, I think that the tessellation, like just setting that up in the first place, fixed the normal hard edges or cusping, or I think sometimes as well it's like super low resolution, like very large triangles, you can get shadow, like the ray hits itself when it's doing the shadow calculation or something like that. Made 5 changes. Sorry, yeah, that's another reason I feel like doing the hip file publishing like on the fly could be easier for people not like miss a change that happens too quickly or whatever. Whoa. I think the stupil was getting, I used it for something a while ago. I don't know if it's a little too psychedelic. This one could be good. I don't know if it doesn't look like the other octaves are working that well with it. Hypnotoad. This is booyah. I wonder who names these. Some of these have weird noises. It looks like the booyah. This one should be good. Maybe just have it really dialed in and dialed back super subtle. Yeah, thanks for stopping in, Noah. Checking it out. So just a super subtle scale, put that into the displacement, get the bump going again, get the color. So I think it's just thinking about everything, pondering itself. I'm just gonna try like forcing it. I don't know, everything was set pretty low. So it doesn't seem happy with me though. You at 50? I shouldn't be at 50 million. Even the plants are turned off right now, I think. Might have to. Yeah, I don't know. The tessellation can count if you're bragging. If you want to boast about your scene, definitely count the tessellation. I feel like I did something slightly stupid by trying to like have this plug in, like rewire everything as the redshift is cooking. All right, it figured itself out. So, yeah, I don't know, the subdivision is pretty low. I was increasing the minimum. Just go even lower with that. See what happens. I feel like it shouldn't be that difficult on most PCs. I mean, I'm not doing anything super performance intensive. Like, I think part of it is trying to load the textures. Hold on a second. I don't know where this is getting the this shop material path. It looks like my displacement is too strong. But yeah, I think this is more, I'm just not setting this stuff up properly with Redshift, maybe. I'm also a little bit suspicious of this shop material path attribute. I think that can mess up some Redshift stuff sometimes. Like it will, I had that problem with the Pyro stuff where it was overriding the volume shader. All right. Octane definitely seems better with displacements. Like I've seen people saying that the displacements like load more quickly with it. I'm just gonna get rid of that shop material path. I could go even lower, I guess, with like the subdivisions. And then maybe even super subtle with that noise. So yeah, it looks like that was loading a little bit more quickly. Now you have just some extra little detail, a little bit of extra roughness or whatever. Yeah, I think if we look at the wireframe, where is it? Maybe I have to do it with the node. The surface is already like pretty, the triangle count or whatever is pretty high, so I think my I think I was just being an idiot with my tessellation settings and stuff like that. I don't know. Yeah, I guess this is just the two iterations of subdivision. Should be okay. Let's get the plants back. The instancing is not the best in Octane. So you do it with the Octane standalone? Sometimes I see people using that Octane standalone like interface thing. It looks pretty cool. It has like all the nodes, the like horizontal, the long nodes. Fat. All right, so I'm just gonna knock the diffuse back, so these things don't look like they're glowing. Specular could probably not be super shiny, and could try adding like the subsurface stuff in. Probably just want a super small radius. I'm just gonna turn off subsurface for right now, just to work a little bit more quickly. Maybe add that in at the end if we think we need it. Maybe this stuff is like too saturated. I think one guy developing the plugin for Houdini, I think that's how Redshift is doing it. One guy, Geranjo, pretty powerful. Yeah, I think he's been the only dev. I think Arnold was doing a similar thing when they were porting their stuff to Houdini like 6 years ago or something. It was just one guy tackling it. All right, so I'm just gonna go lower with the IOR. I feel like you want to be closer to water. Yeah, it's hard to know because like which renderer, GPU renderer or whatever to pick. Everything's under such rapid development, and you don't know how the companies are going to allocate resources and stuff like that. So it's a bit of it, just like getting lucky, I guess, with how much time the companies spend to develop it. Yeah, it's really fun to mess around with because you get nice results. I feel like the goal is even quicker than this, like either through the Hydra, like getting stuff in real time in the viewport. I see more and more people on Twitter and stuff doing like Unreal or Unity and bringing their Houdini stuff in. I'm kind of interested in doing that eventually. All right. So I'm just gonna hide the renderer for right now. Go into this plant growth. Get out of UV view here. Just gonna save this. Go into a new folder. Oh dear, it's almost the end of September. Just call this 14. But yeah, I feel like just anything with computer graphics is like learning, like the quicker you're able to get a visual result, the better you're able to develop your eye and stuff like that. Houdini is a bit of it's easy to get sucked into like mess around with technical stuff, and like if you want to be a TD and more of a technical person or something like that, TD is just technical director. Could spend a lot of time getting good with like HDAs and scripts, but if you're interested in just being more like concept or generalist, like I don't know, this is kind of what I'm interested in right now, is just developing my eye producing visually interesting stuff. So I'm going to take this packed primitive, do a copy. For Octane, it's a good idea, use quad remesher. Yeah, I don't know, even with Redshift here, I think that's kind of why things were slow with this rock. Because like with my camera, I'm kind of being foolish, I guess, or like unoptimized, like focusing in on that small part, but it's still a pretty high triangle count that I'm trying to render and then displace. So I think that's like, if I wanted to cut out just the patch that I'm rendering, I think I could speed up the GPU process a little bit more with it. So I'm just going to take this plant with the copy node, make one copy of it, make a few more, so we have 10. Hi John, always popping in and out. Want to say keep it up. It's really interesting. See the process in Houdini. It's a program I want to get better at. Always stuck. Yeah, thanks for stopping by, checking in. Yeah, Houdini is definitely the taunting, mysterious bit of software. It's hard to know the best path to learn it or anything like that, but if you're interested, like just taking bits of your workflow and trying to do it in Houdini. If you're already doing other stuff with 3D, that's a good, I don't know, a good idea. So I've just copied this packed primitive. This is kind of like an instance instead of doing the packed disk sequence. This is just going to be a static kind of instance or a static reference to the original model. Then we have the UV attributes that are going along the plant or along the surface. And then I add this copy num attribute. That's basically the primitive number, or like if I just look at the spreadsheet, see we have copies 0 through 9 for all the 10 copies we created. I'm gonna cast that copy num. It's a primitive attribute, and then we're gonna make it a float precision. So you can see now it has decimals. These hold fractional values or things like that. If I just do a primitive wrangle, just take copy num, divide it by 10. Divide equals is just saying divide itself by 10. Now you can see it starts at 0 and goes up to 0.9. And then the last thing I'm going to do is just promote that to a point attribute. So I think the redshift shaders and stuff like that, when you're reading geometry attributes in, it looks for it or prefers it to be a point attribute. We'll just do this. And then I think I'm just gonna make a new camera for all 10 of these. Let's try, see what we get with it. Let's just get rid of this light. Just do a dome. All right, so we have the 10 plants. Then I think I can just do the point attribute. Set it to copy num. I'm just gonna override the shader. You can see now we're getting the actual copy number value from 0 all the way to 0.9 or close to 1. That's cool. This will just be copy num. I think we can also do just keep, I guess you could try that other one. I think they're doing the same thing. Whether you're doing vector, user data, or point attribute. I'm just trying to load the UV attributes with this one. I think it's working. Let me see if I need to do it. Yeah, I think it's the same information either way. I don't know if I've done something. So I think because I was testing out that time, I just get rid of that offset. All right, that's more of what I was expecting to see. So the green channel, the red channel is like going around the skeleton or around the tube. and the green channel is going from the base to the top. So what I should be able to do here is, I think I can go back here to this UV. If I just do the vector to scalar, we look at the Y or the green channel, we have them the bottom to top. I think maybe just the change range. So I think using the min and max here, like if you slide those around, you can see it's kind of growing, animating. Probably want to go like the other way. So I'm could turn off the light for right now. Maybe just make it like a different color to see stuff more easily. All right. So I'm kind of thinking this is going to be used as the opacity, so it could slide it up to kind of reveal the plant like it's growing. So I'm going to take this copy num attribute that's going from 0 to 1, or 0.9. I think I can plug it in here in both areas. And then just multiply one of them to be slightly bigger. I think I wanted to do the other one maybe. All right. So this number here is going to be like the gradient kind of, or how much you're fading of the growth. Kind of like the band. Duck fast. Cool. Yeah, so this is, you're basically taking the UV, like the number that's at 0 and going to 1, and then comparing it, or like fitting it or changing the range to be within these values, basically a growth between 0.1 and 0.125 or whatever that works out to be. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. I don't know. Need to do like a pen and paper whiteboard example maybe to explain it better. But I think now you can plug this into the opacity. Put the actual shader back. Now you kind of see it's doing the growth. It does look like, looking down the cross section, you have a bit of like artifacts of floating pieces or the ray going through the geometry. But I think for the actual scene, it shouldn't be that big of a problem. Like there's going to be so much stuff going on, it should kind of hide those issues. All right, so I think instead of copy num, probably going to want to use an attribute like grow, just to be a little bit more clear. And then we go back to our growth. We were always taking basically the age attribute and remapping it to be like the frame number, going from 1 to 24, or this is like 23 or something like that for starts at 0 and goes to 23 in this case instead of like 1 to 24. But I think you can just call that grow and we should be good. So I can just do an attribute rename after we're done with our age processing and rename it from age to grow. do the copying. The variant stuff, I think, for right now, I'm just going to disable that. So let's see. I don't think I want the UV, the texture from, that UV is from this input, or the points that we were copying things onto, and I don't want to include that. So I only want it to be from this, the actual UV of the packed geometry. So I don't want them conflicting with each other or anything like that. See if it works. We'll go back to camera 1. So even though in the viewport these are popping on and off, they have that growth attribute that will be, let me see if I can do it this way. It looks like it doesn't want me to visualize it. All right. If we just look at the spreadsheet, as these propagate, that value will go from 0 to 1, which in the shader will slide the opacity across the branches to make it look like they're kind of growing. Let's see what happens. Just get rid of this test light, go back to our scene light, and go back to the shot camera. See what happens. I see some stuff changing. Let's get the Rock. Dwayne Johnson back into the scene. So it's looking pretty promising. Might be a little slower for Redshift. Seems like a lot of ray tracers don't like doing a ton of like transparency or opacity calculations, but this might be the most like optimized or kind of stable way to handle this right now. Let me try doing a bit of color correction. I'm just going to keep desaturating the color to be more of like a mold or something like that. All right. Just pause the rendering for right now. I'm gonna try to optimize stuff a little bit to get the renderer to go faster. So if I take the just take the camera frustum, if I do group, and then we'll make a maybe volume. From the camera 1. And you get this kind of, it looks low resolution here, but it should be fine. This is like camera, what's in view of the camera pretty much, just from the near and far clipping planes. You could do volume bound to turn that into like polygonal or solid geometry. And then I think with the group, just do it by bounding regions. bounding object. You just have to make sure you're in points mode for that to work. So you'd see now it's just grouping the points that are within the frame or the camera's view. You might want to add a little bit of padding to, this is kind of just expanding the edges like that. So just to avoid artifacts at the edges. All right. And if you want, you could do group promote just to move this to actual primitives. And then do blast to keep just only the stuff within the camera's view. You can see we're going from like 500,000 primitives to 200,000 or something like that, so it's already a little bit more optimized. If you really wanted to like finesse stuff, I think if I just decrease the far clip and get like the back of the rock, that stuff I don't need either. Best trick ever. Yeah, it's pretty useful if you're really trying to dial in and like get your settings and stuff working really well. Redshift has some stuff that they try to do with this like out of frustum tessellation. It's possible, like if I do limit the out of frustum stuff, but sometimes it's easier to just do it yourself. We could try doing this again. So it looks like the startup, like time to first pixel or whatever, is a little bit quicker in this case. I think one thing we can do with these plants, let's take a look at the curves. They already might be like a bit high resolution. If you do a facet with the remove inline points, I don't know if this, sometimes you could make artifacts with it, but we'll see how well it works in this case. Basically this just tries to find like straight areas that aren't curving and only unrefine or remove extra points in those areas. So going from like 4,000 to 1,000 points. You kind of see some of the stuff I was afraid of, but we'll see what happens. It's possible doing maybe a fuse. It's kind of trashed it on me there. I don't know. Sometimes if you just set the maximum joint scale to 1, you can get rid of those like tears. Looks like there's still some floating points, like this will remove the unused points, the points that aren't belonging to any primitives, essentially. So it's definitely not super good quality, but just to speed up again the rendering, I'm just gonna see how much that helps things. Like even this LOD culling that the viewport does for packed instances or packed primitives, if I just toggle on and off those optimizations, you can see already the viewport can load or display them, more of them, or display them more quickly, kind of. Let's see if we have a faster render now. Looks like it might be a little bit quicker. I'm going to go into the outs. I'm just going to go with one GI bounce for right now. Might be able to like reduce its transparency samples a little bit to speed stuff up in this case. Then I'm going to try maybe just going to maybe 1/3 the resolution. See how long this takes to render. Yeah, I don't know, it's still kind of slow. I think it's just the noise threshold. Just go like a factor of 10. Trying to get closer to like 10 seconds for a frame or quicker. I think I could go even maybe even higher with that noise threshold. That adaptive air threshold is basically, I'm meant to do a bucket render. Basically how long the bucket will spend on the area before it decides to keep moving to a different area. You'd see here it's got a bit more noise, but I think it's closer to the time limit I'm looking for of like 10-20 seconds a frame. I guess if you really want to speed things up, maybe just ditch like the GI lighting. See what happens. I don't know. I think that's going to change the look of everything too much. All right, gonna get a pretty filthy, pretty scuffed renders, but just for previewing stuff more quickly or whatever here, should be okay. Maybe just add a little bit higher settings. Demon Case, how's it going? Wismachu 666, thank you for the host. I'm doing all right. I'm still working on this slightly cursed scene. Still trying to find better ways to optimize this kind of growing fungi or whatever you want to call it. So I've basically moved the animation into the shader component, or to happen at render time. I'm making this growth point attribute that's animating from 0 to 1 over time to slide the opacity of the plants like from the root to their tips. So it looks like maybe frame 66 to 120 or something like that should see some good growth happening in the view of the camera. Let's just go into here, try that. I'm just gonna change the start at 65. Looks complex. Yeah, I mean, it's not, the underlying component of it is pretty straightforward. I think it's all happening kind of right here. So I basically just have this attribute that's animating over time. Oops. So using the distance along geometry, I made this attribute going from 0 to 1, and then just added noise to it to distort it. And then I'm just trying to find like a good efficient way to grow kind of instance geometry based off of that attribute. It seems like I've tried packed disk sequence, and then I was offsetting like the intrinsic to load different frames of it, but it was getting a lot of glitching and flickering and stuff like that in the viewport. So I'm just trying a different method here with doing it at render time. Definitely seems to, my renders are maybe a bit slow, I don't know. With the using opacity or using transparency with ray tracers seems to slow them down a little bit. I'm just gonna bang out some frames, some really low res, noisy frames, but just to see what this animation looks like of the growth. It's possible I maybe just want to turn off. I'm just going to try that for right now. I feel like that result is just going to be too difficult to judge. Like too noisy. So I'm going to turn off the rock, deactivate the rock, and see what it looks like. Just rendering the plants or the instances by themselves. So there's the light that's visible that causes a artifact, or it just looks weird in the render. We'll turn the light visibility off. Maybe with the plant shader, could still go even rougher with the specular. Yeah, that could be cool with like going from the entire rock to a macro, very thin, like depth of field or something like that. Yes, I was always planning, like that's why I moved this camera so close. Like I always eventually wanted to do this, like the focal plane sweeping or raking across the rock or whatever. So as the animation or as the growth process is happening, you like, it follows focus or whatever. But yeah, that could be cool to show the whole rock and then macro in. I think this should be good. So let's try maybe just more diffuse. All right. I'm gonna move, let's go back to our camera 2, kind of test camera. I'm just gonna go more of like a debug kind of view of like top down or something like that. Just as a test to see what this growth looks like with it. I don't know if this light is just too intense maybe, so like overexposed. Just gonna update the frustum choline or whatever for the other camera. Yeah, I think it's still gonna be maybe too slow with the rock. Just try going closer to the camera. Maybe we'll do like frame 14 onwards. Let's see how long that's taking. Should be reasonable. I think in this case I can turn off that junk. See how quick it is. All right, that should be good. Just start at 20, 25, 24, go to the other camera. Let's try. Seems like a difficult thing, I don't know. Brute force, photon, irradiance, lighting, redshift wrap. Irradiance, photon are both kind of caching, like before the render starts, it will do a pre-caching phase where it tries to build like a representation of the light bouncing in the scene. It's like a photon map or GI cache or there's a bunch of different names and stuff for it. It's all kind of the same idea. Usually I don't spend a lot of time to like, you have to kind of dial settings in and stuff like that to get it working well. So usually I'll use brute force, where that's the render at render time is actually calculating bounce lighting and multiple bounces of the light. It's all basically trying to find a good example here. So it's like rendering one of the more expensive parts of it is like diffuse bounce light. So if you just have a white tube sitting on a green piece of paper or green card. Yeah, so I usually just do brute force. Like the renderer will have to do this bounce where it basically light that hits this is allowed to reflect or bounce one time and then cast or illuminate other stuff. It produces more noise, and it's like requires the render to do more things, more calculations. So that's why I turned it off for this, because I just wanted to kind of see just get an idea of what was going on as quick as possible. Like if I was actually rendering this with the rock and with the other stuff set up, I would probably do it the other way, but I just wanted to work as quickly as possible. So I just turned off all the fancy bells and whistles. But yeah, with like V-Ray has what is it called? They have the volume grid. They have their own like proprietary, it might just be the light cache. Basically does the same thing, but they've spent a lot of time optimizing it. So like for architecture in interior scenes, it can be really slow to run like bounce lighting brute force method. So that's why, like if you're rendering a scene like this, it might make a lot of sense to dial in the photon cache or those settings. But if you're doing exteriors or if you're just working quickly, you don't want to bother like worrying that you might be producing artifacts using the GI cache. Usually I just either turn it on or off. Yeah, definitely. It seems like the growth is working. Like my attribute system and stuff like that is working. I don't know with the flickering. It might just be. I could move into the alpha channel. The alpha channel seems like less flickering. So seems like the from that. Based off of that, you can kind of assume that the majority of this flickering is either from transparency samples or the specular. I guess it's not. You would see it in the alpha if it was transparency samples, so it has to be flickering that's just in the specular reflection of this stuff. Yeah, definitely. It seems promising or somewhat promising. Could be cool. Just trying to think. This is like a weird level of detail to be working at, I guess. Like usually people will build, I don't know, like hair systems or stuff like that for really fine, like intricate fuzziness on plants, and I'm kind of like moss or something like that. I'm kind of like in that territory. That's why I'm just a bit going back and forth or whatever on like what is the best way to tackle this. There's some cool articles and stuff like that people have done with this. This is not all this exact same idea, but it's similar ideas of like they're scattering to propagate plants. They're not animating the growth and stuff like that, so it's a little bit of a different pipeline, but let's take another look. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely nice that it's working in the render. Like the other Pactus sequences and stuff were definitely not doing as much as what I wanted to. This is definitely seems promising, at least to get a result. It might be a bit slower, like I was saying with the transparency, doing it render time or whatever, but if it's the only way that works, it's the only way you have to go. There was trying to look up some stuff over here. I think with Brave, Pixar did some stuff similar to this with doing some procedural. This was Inigo. It's a beast. I don't know if this has the whole thing. I think the stuff he was doing requires like actually writing render procedurals. Like anytime you actually want to generate geometry at render time, you either need to do it with the like CVEX in Houdini, that's their render procedural. With Redshift, you'd need to do like a C++, like you're kind of writing your own shader. So it's a bit beyond me at that point. I've tried RenderMan. I haven't ever used it to an extent that I've gotten like really deep with it, like into the intricacies of it and everything. From my understanding, Mantra is a pretty good like equivalent or substitute for RenderMan. In terms of capabilities, like they both follow the same spec, so you should both be able to do like have the same amount of like in-depth under the hood I don't know, access to like features and stuff that you need to, but Mantra is just free with Houdini, and then it is super well integrated in terms of like using CVEX. You can modify it with VOPs and don't have to write as much code. I feel like certain things with Mantra aren't as well developed, like some of the subsurface skin shading and stuff like that. Yeah, it's super trustable. It supports stuff. It's very robust in terms of like features that it supports and things you can do inside of it. So even like they have their fur procedural, I might be able to do some stuff with it that could do something similar to this. RenderMan is more suitable for Pixar-like cartoons and not motion design. It's still pretty suitable for like motion design and commercial work and stuff like that. ILM uses RenderMan for their like even Star Wars and stuff like that for hard surface lighting. You could find articles and things like that you look through for it. I think the biggest difference with RenderMan is that it's like you need kind of a bigger team to support it, of like technical artists, pipeline developers and things like that. So depending on the size of the studio that you're working at, like a small commercial motion design studio isn't going to spend the resources or time or money to have like an entire team of people that are maintaining shaders and maintaining a lot of extra stuff that you need for RenderMan. So it's less of like a technical capability. Like you can get really good results with RenderMan. It's more of just like resources and stuff like that. But there's some cool examples with Luis. Maybe they've done some deep dives of. This is the scan, and then this is the result. So this is all with the RenderMan. Like they have a pretty good subsurface model, and then I think they even did like some micro layer of like fuzz or something like that for like the peach fuzz, like the little extra skin and everything. Um, but yeah, you can definitely get really good results with RenderMan. All right, where did that window go? You just close this out. All right, so I'm just gonna stop that where it is. This will play back a little bit more quickly. So yeah, it looks like just my render settings, there was a good amount of noise, but the attribute is definitely working. There's maybe some issues with like the transparency, but I think it's a situation where everything is overlapping and stuff like that so much that it will probably be hard to tell. But yeah, I basically just wanted to make sure that like technically that shader animation and stuff would work before I continued to go down that path. So I'm gonna go back into the main camera now and just dial in some lighting and shading and stuff like that for it. All right, so we're back in camera 1, back with our plants. Let's get the full scene going again. So it looks like these ones here just haven't grown that far. I'm gonna go to a later frame. More of them should be visible. All right. We turn back on some of the bells and whistles with the GI. And just gonna try to kind of dial in some settings for like a hero frame or something like that for right now. So the plant shader, just get the render region going. I think I went a little bit too dull with like the color. Just go maybe brighter. Get some more saturation back in there. Oof. It's like the cartoon world. I'm just kind of looking at the other bit of moss or whatever that was on that rock. Trying to get somewhere closer to that. All right, that should be a little bit better. I don't know this with my specular roughness. I feel like I'm pretty rough. I'm just maybe gonna knock down the entire specular contribution. Maybe getting closer to like the yellow. Seems like that's a bit more realistic with this scene. But yeah, the main things I was interested with this setup is just having it be pretty interactive and pretty flexible. So like even adding much more plants, it's going to be like twice as many. If I add more of them, I'm just going to go smaller the P scale. And then even with the plant, maybe let's take a look at this thing. Generating different plants and different outcomes or different, I don't know, species or variants should all be pretty easy to do as well. Let's see what this one looks like. This is just going to be lower resolution across. I think doing that faceting trick seems to speed stuff up for right now. Let's see what we're getting. I'm just gonna make it bigger. So I want them to be like thick enough that they all kind of read as like one connected organism or plant group or whatever you want to call it. All right. Let's go back here, give it some more sample maximum, lower noise threshold, and just go into the full resolution. Let's see what we get. I'm gonna just get some water while this is starting. I have the time. Yeah, I have enough time to drink a gallon of water before this would finish. So yeah, what I did was turn all the bells and whistles back on. So the noise should be getting chased out pretty well. It does look like the things I was doing, that you get some like gnarly tries or like hard edges or whatever. But unless you're super macro, like it seems to hold up pretty well. The stuff in shadow seems pretty cool. Fix it in post. Just paint it out. Yeah, I mean, I think it was always, maybe if these aren't as thick, they wouldn't stand out as much. Like if your plant, I don't know what you're calling it, tentacles or tendrils or whatever, if those are all thinner, it wouldn't stand out as much. But yeah, from this distance, this camera distance, like I don't think it would be that jarring. Maybe just changing that like bandwidth that I was playing around with in the shader, then you would get more of like a fade in and less of like a hard popping of like disappear and reappear. So like, go into the shader. All right. Super sluggish. We just want to be sure probably to update the name of this node. Don't forget. It's like your webcam, more contrast. Yes, I moved everything to a Windows. Is recording on a different computer. It might be the LUT or something. I don't know. It's like Streamlabs OBS now instead of just regular Streamlabs. So maybe they have some. They're tuning my face. So yeah, multiplying this by a bigger number just widens the range that you're fading the attribute or like the geometry in over time. So that might kind of hide or soften some of those edges so it doesn't look as crunchy or whatever. Need to get the GPU render farm. Seems like whatever you do with Redshift, it's always kind of slow. The some of the stuff that, who was it? Someone was doing it on Twitter with Unreal. I think it was Rohan. My internet stuff is super slow. I saw the Intagma one. It was more of just like general Unreal stuff. The reason I was bringing up Rohan was he was doing something that was more similar to what I was doing here with. Yeah, he was just posting renders, but it was like some plants kind of animating or wiggling around or something like that, right? Trying to look for it right now. Maybe he followed the Intagma tutorial to get to where he did. I don't know, I've lost track of it. It was like a underwater kind of vibe. Suggest Windows, sadly. Yeah, I kind of read something similar to that 4 or 5 years ago, but it's too bad that that still seems to be the case. Yeah, this was the kind of stuff I was thinking about. So I'm just not sure how he was bringing the animation into Unreal, if he was doing like a vertex. One thing people do sometimes is the vertex animation texture that bakes the delta, like the change in position to a texture map or an image. From, I don't know if it's changed recently, but from my understanding, like Alembic animation caches were too slow or too heavy to bring into Unreal. But yeah, this is kind of what I had in mind. Is I guess there isn't really animation of the growth happening. It's more of just displacements. But be interested to get quicker feedback as we wait. The time ticks off with this. The speed of this render. But yeah, I mean, it's just the difference as well of going real time or offline rendering. Yeah, I mean, just being able to, it's always frustrating just having to spend a week rendering like a 10-second animation, you know? It's like bit of a buzzkill, bit of a buzzkillington. And then like finding errors or stupid mistakes you did or things you want to change, like it just is a bit frustrating. To make all the shaders in Unreal, yeah. I mean the shade, like I've used the material editor or whatever in Unreal before. It's not too bad. It's kind of like a bit of a level up with Redshift, because like in real time you're actually seeing like even displacements, like vertex displacements, adding noise to things and stuff like that. Like you get much quicker feedback, so it's kind of fun. I don't know if you'd be able to get this much detail in things. Yeah, I haven't gone through the Intagma tutorials. I was using it maybe like 3 years ago now for some projects, and I mean it was pretty fun. I just wish that it was integrated well enough that you didn't need to like import and export stuff. Like you just do a drop down here in the viewport with Hydra and you get the Unreal. After using real time, I just feel like Redshift can get the RT done. Yeah, so the Redshift RT would be super cool. I don't know, like there were some caveats with it. Like I don't know if transparency would be one of the things. It's kind of similar with Eevee in Blender. Like I don't think that they can do shadows. Like you can get real-time performance with Eevee, but you can't get like indirect shadows or things like that. So you kind of, I don't know if you just hack it. Like make it in post, you could make a duplicate and like move, slightly offset it and blur it to fake it or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's cool that you can dev stuff out in Eevee so quickly, but yeah, I don't know. The goal is just to work as quickly as possible. I never tried 3 Delight. I've always been just scared to set it up or intimidated by it. You need to pay. There's like cloud rendering services. Like I've used grid markets and stuff like that before with Mantra and Redshift, but anything you have to pay for, like I don't know, unless I'm actually working for, oh, it's free. Yeah, it seems like that stuff should get cheaper and cheaper, if not free. But yeah, there's some interesting parts of this scene for sure. I think I just went over the top with my noise settings maybe. Like my noise threshold is too low for this or something like that. What do you think? Too high quality? Reduce the quality, sir. Moss kind of looks like ocean seagrass. Yeah, it might be too, like the scale of things I think is a little off in some areas. I don't know if maybe overall going like thinner. So I just tried 10 times as thin for the plant. I don't know, get it more fuzzy, furry looking. I'm just gonna go back to the Redshift, maybe increase the noise threshold. Very oceanic groundish. Yeah, I think Rohan's stuff is very, I guess the atmosphere, like the color saturation or desaturation makes it feel kind of underwater. I guess the depth of field as well. Fishes in blue tones, and you're good. It's kind of like a terrarium vibe or something like that. It's like a little succulents or something. These the spiky boys. But yeah, I tried it now, reducing the thickness. So I guess these are more like a grass or fuzzy moss or something like that now. I did increase the adaptive air threshold to this is like 5 times. It was like at 0.02 before, and now it's 0.1. So overall, I guess this render probably in a territory of like 1 or 2 minutes a frame. The fish swarm system. There was it was kind of like the vellum tendrils that were spreading or moving across the rock surface. You just get sucked into unintentionally recreating the same work over and over again. At least this one doesn't hungry. I haven't used optics that recently. I was using it a while back, but like with some particles that had motion blur and depth of field, like it started to give me some weird artifacts that was like just in motion, like it was weird time interpolation stuff, or just didn't look too natural. But I feel like it's maybe gotten better over time, or it might be more worthwhile to use. Generally, like I don't know, I'd prefer to let a little bit of grain sit on the image, so I don't know, it kind of adds like the photographic nature of things. Yeah, the optics, that was the one reason I stopped using it, because it just feels a little too like unnatural, like not really render noise is nice because it will always feel a bit like camera grain or whatever, like just doesn't throw your eye off as much. But yeah, maybe trying it again could have gotten better. Just gonna go in here with some of these settings. Yeah, I don't know, the specular on now that it's more of like a grass or something, I might want it to be get kind of like dewdrops or glistening or something like that. Maybe if I reduce the number of reflections, that might help quite a bit. Large blobs. I think you could like, I mean, it's a pretty flexible setup. Just let this render a little bit more. So basically, like my instance points that have this age attribute, or it's kind of just like a grow or transition attribute, you could, I think, just put that into like a VDB from polygons setup and switch age to p-scale, and get like a layer of metaball, like blobby expanding growth stuff. Um, could be pretty cool. Would be like, I guess you could do it shorter or something like that underneath, like another layer. Maybe like a mushroom, or I don't know, some kind of like spores or fungi or something like that. Remake of Brave. Yeah, I was looking at the research from Inigo's website, from some of the, I guess he was doing like some procedural stuff in RenderMan with it. They were doing some fungi, or I guess just like smaller flora or something like that. But I think most of that stuff was like super custom RenderMan procedurals. It was like C or C++ or whatever. So with Redshift, or just in general, it's a bit beyond my level of skill. But he was actually building like L systems at render time, kind of, and doing that kind of stuff. Just from looking at it, that was my guess, is that he's doing that kind of. So like you could do this with Mantra and build hair curves at render time, and you can basically like take one curve and then propagate like 20 around them using the hair system and stuff. You could customize it pretty well, but then just producing a nice ray traced like image with indirect illumination, you run into problems with Mantra. So that's why it's a bit of like an unorthodox approach with Redshift, but seems to be, I don't know, what is this, 5-6 minutes for HD image? It's a little better. It's looking good. Thank you, Jabram. Yeah, the colors are kind of nice. It's starting to feel pretty soft and gentle or whatever. Easier to control some growth. Yes, I mean the like scattering, like propagating and growing stuff in Houdini is super easy to control, but then I feel like just rendering, like producing interesting outcomes, like actually visually interesting stuff, becomes the biggest bottleneck. I don't know. Some growth using a texture. So another thing you could do with the texture is if you had like different, I don't know, using Substance Painter or something like that, you could generate like different textures for the rock that would be like mossed and unmossed or something like that, and then use attributes or transition, like just purely blend between different displacement maps in the shader to make it look like growth. But you're a bit limited because you could just displace. You can't do like concave curves sticking out of the geometry or whatever, like some of these areas. Looking pretty cool. All right, so I'll just halt that where it is. Yeah, so start to wrap this up where we are. Save it as a new version. The one thing that I was talking about with the VDB stuff, like everything's pretty well set up. You probably just want to do more points if you're going to be doing like a VDB spreading kind of thing. The textures calculation buffers. to control things. So yeah, doing like a noisy. The lower saturation. You think this overall is? I did boost the saturation a little bit. I don't know if I went too. I always seem to go a little too high with it. I don't know. But yeah, so if you're doing VDB with it, like this still has the distance. Could copy the other stuff. And then this is still coloring based off of the age, but could just do it here, I guess. You could take the age and then do it as set the P scale by it. And you do VDB from particles. You could get like a spreading. Just gonna go pretty low with the radius. See what happens. That should match the pattern. Might have gone too big with the setting. This does slow down a little bit when you're, I guess 9 million is a bit high. When you're like rasterizing or converting a lot of particles. But yeah, you can get some kind of blobby expanding growth as well. Let's see what happens here. I think as a hack, maybe if you just blast, delete the invisible ones or the ones with a scale of 0. Do like a P scale less than small number. Delete them. Seems to speed things up a little bit. Could do convert. Just go back to polygons. And you need like a little bit extra scale to keep stuff from getting lost. It might be a bit flickery using voxels or whatever. Just try easy cake topping. So make frostings. But yeah, I was thinking like if you're really doing mold or something like that, you wanted like a thin layer of goo or something going across the surface. Might be able to do something along the lines. Could be cool. I think this is kind of a weird camera view. Like I would want to start optimizing the stuff to be within the camera view. Just overall, let's just take a look at the see what this looks like. So yeah, this might be another area, maybe doing like 2 surfaces with one displacing from inside to going outside with the subsurface shader on it might be higher quality, but it's an idea. Indeed. Yeah, so it's probably going to be it for today. Sublayer. Yeah, I don't know. Just trying to think that, like, it's hard to know where to add the detail, like whether to try to do it in the shader, like representing things as surfaces, volumes, render time, textures, or stuff like that. Adorably fluffy. It's my chia pet right here. All right, so that's it for today. Hope everyone enjoyed it. Might be doing it. I'll just do a test render of this overnight or something and see what happens. But let me know if anyone has any ideas that could help. I don't know if they figure out things with the packed disk sequence or anything like that. I'll be posting this file in the Discord. See everyone Friday, I think. Yeah, we'll be back Friday. The cool zone. All right. Let me take a look here. Nobody's online to raid. So yeah, we'll be back Friday. Have a good rest of the week.